See, many of us know that we have a soul, but we rarely notice it, we rarely feel it, we rarely think much about it, because in America, you can be a great success and yet forfeit your soul. There's no life hack, there's no quick fix for the soul. Psalm 131, verse 2, I love this verse. Instead, I have calmed and quieted myself. Boy, I need this. Like a weaned child who no longer cries for its mother's milk. Yes, like a weaned child is my soul within me. Another translation reads, I'm at peace like a baby with its mother. Like a weaned child is my soul with... This sounds like somebody who is successfully detoxed, in a way. Like, when's the last time you kind of sensed the condition, not that you had a soul, but the condition of your soul? And yes, theologically, I know that we're made perfect in Christ and we get his righteousness and we give him our sin. But we're still in this flesh, right? And then there's this war with our flesh and our souls that are perfected in Christ. And therefore, the goal of a Christian really, largely the goal is to, in greater measure, align our outward selves, our bodies, our thoughts, our behaviors, our motives, our actions with what has happened within us, our hearts. But this alignment doesn't happen quickly. So many of us on Thursday will enjoy a meal that maybe looks a little bit like this. Thanksgiving dinner. And you've got to have mashed potatoes, by the way. This is of the Lord. And you also need to have gravy with the mashed potatoes. And that makes all the vegetables palatable. But anyway, this is why these things work together. But that looks delicious, does it not? How about this picture? That looks good. That hungry man? You have to go to the trouble and spend, 6-7 minutes. Pop that bad boy into the microwave, nuke that thing, and you're ready to go. Both are turkey dinners, are they not? But they're not the same. And nobody would say that they're the same. One is carefully attended to. One, a person or multiple people have spent hours cultivating, handcrafting, spending time in the kitchen, treating this Thanksgiving meal like a work of art, which it is, by the way. And the other is just quickly thrown together. It's nothing, right? And I would say this, if we're going to line that fleshly self of ours, our bodies, our minds, our motives, those kind, with who we most truly are in Christ, well, friends, it takes time, it takes training, it takes discipline. There are zero shortcuts. If you want to be like Jesus, it never happens in haste. There's never somebody who's frenzied and they become like Jesus. Unfortunately, for many of us, our spiritual lives look more like the hungry man turkey dinner. Our souls, in a sense. Okay, here's the story we're going to hit here. We'll go through it quickly. Luke chapter 10, verse 38 through 42, just 5 verses. I love this story because it's a story where Jesus actually becomes friends for the first time with a couple people, Mary and Martha, their sisters, living together, and they have a brother, Lazarus. And so they love each other. And here they first meet Jesus. At least it's the first recording where they are in contact with Jesus. Let's take a look at it. Verse 38. As Jesus and the disciples continued on their way to Jerusalem, they came to a certain village, that's Bethany, by the way, just outside Jerusalem, where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She is so hospitable. I love that, Martha. But her sister Mary... what a lazy, she sat at the Lord's feet. Oh my, listening to what he taught. Okay, that's good, but Martha's like getting stuff ready right here. Verse 40, but Martha was, distracted by the Thanksgiving, the big dinner that she was preparing. And she came to Jesus and said, Lord, doesn't it seem unfair to you? I love how presumptuous she is. This is what I think, and of course you think the same, don't you? Doesn't it seem unfair to you that my sister, now listen to these words, just sits here while, next two words, I do? We've got Mary just sitting and Martha just doing. And in America, we would say, well, good job, doer. And we got to straighten out the sitter, right? What is she doing? And then I love this. Martha commands Jesus, which by the way is never a good idea. Tell her to come and help me. And all of us have felt that, right? I'm working on something. My wife has felt that a lot. But anyway, I'm working on something and I'm doing it and you're just sitting. Now, usually it's watching a game. But anyway, there's a doer and there's a sitter. But has it ever occurred to you that maybe there are times when we ought to be the one who just sits? Particularly at the feet of Jesus, as a disciple would in the first century. To hear from Jesus, like this is actually, is there anything wrong with being hospitable and preparing a meal and welcoming some? Of course not. But you know what's even more important? You know what's better? To be with the Lord, to listen to the Lord. Is that the way you live your life? As if the most important part of your day is time with the Lord. And you will do anything to protect that time. You'll do anything to spend that time. You enjoy that time. You cherish that time. When it's over, you're like, I can't wait for tomorrow. And I would say this. The truth is, many of us feel like, that's so boring. And it will require a detox. It really will. But if we can, maybe something new will happen within us. And we'll find delight in the Lord's presence. And he will be to us, as the psalmist writes, in his presence there are pleasures forevermore. Instead of this begrudging obligation. That's kind of where I'm going with the message today. Well, let's finish the story here. Verse 41, but the Lord said to her, my dear Martha. I love how he says that. Marcia, Marcia, Marcia. What's that from? I am dating myself. Brady Bunch, yes. Jan. Anyway, whatever. Okay. See, squirrel, I'm doing it right now. My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over all these details. It's not that they mean nothing. I know you're trying, like you mean well. But there actually is something more important than what you think is most important. You're caught up in all the details. Verse 42, there is only one thing. Do you hear that? Do you hear those words? There is only one thing. There is only one thing. There's only one thing worth being concerned about. Mary has discovered it. Another translation reads, Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. Martha wanted to be a good host. Mary had another priority, to sit at the feet of Jesus. You see, Mary chose what was better over what was just good. And sometimes we settle for what's good. If we're lucky to get to what's good, we got to get through the bad first, and then we get to what's good. And we're like, whew, but there is something even better. And the story is largely, if you think about it, about our priorities and about our time. There's one thing more than anything else. Jesus is saying this. Martha, I want you to be with me as Mary wants to be with me. Right? Let's understand something, Christians. Better to neglect your duties for Christ than to neglect your relationship with Christ. But the thing is you won't get the pats on the back for being busy, doing all your ministries and all your work and all those kinds of things. And those things are good, by the way. They are good. But there is something better, and what is better should not be neglected. In order to cultivate a relationship with Jesus, you and I have to be willing to subtract the lesser important, maybe even good, but lesser important things out of our lives. Martha would have been better off subtracting her housework in the presence of Jesus. You say, I'm not good at taking things off my plate. Are you good at taking things off your plate when you want to go fishing? When you want to go golfing? When you want to go shopping? When you want to go skiing? When you want to go name the thing that you just enjoy doing? We manage to find time for that. You see, 3 quick thoughts is attention leads to awareness. What you set your mind on, it leads to a greater personal presence and awareness. Many believers live without a sense of God's nearness. And I've got news for you. God is omnipresent. He is everywhere. And he's eternal, so he's everywhere at all times. His presence is. There's been no place and no time where God has not been. Therefore, when we feel distant from God, guess who the culprit is? It's not God. It is us removing ourselves from his presence. But attention, it starts there, leads to awareness. Secondly, is attention reveals what matters most to you. There's one thing that Jesus says, right? Jesus says to Martha, there's one thing. You can't be devoted to something you're not attentive to. Anything that you're devoted to, you attend to. And lastly, 3 is what you give your attention to is what you become. What you focus on is who you become, what you become. What you see is what you become. This is why, for instance, 1 John 3 verse 2 says, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. Now, it's talking about Jesus' second coming, but there's a reality in that even today. We can't be like Jesus unless we, quote unquote, see him. And the way primarily that we see him is we spend time with him in his word and in prayer and sometimes in fellowship with others. C.S. Lewis said this, to walk with Jesus is to walk with a slow, unhurried pace. Again, hence the word walk, not sprint. Hurry is the death of prayer and only impedes and spoils our work. It never advances it. Friends, love is painfully time-consuming in every relationship. But you cannot grow close to anyone, not your spouse, not your kids, not your friends, not anybody, unless you devote time to be with them. This is what love looks like. Every meaningful relationship looks like this. And this is maybe why Paul describes, really kind of defines love in 1 Corinthians 13 this way. Help me out. He says, love is, wonder if he started that way for a reason. Do you experience great love for people when you're just in a frenzy, panic, hurried, running off? Oh, I'm sorry, I gotta go, gotta run, I know we're in this, but I got my phone out. Just give me a second, let me get to this. Now I'm back to you, and we're just doing this nonsense, but we don't care deeply for each other, including those closest to us, and we need to stop. We need to learn a better way. Do you tend to exhibit joy when you're in a hurry, when you're rushed?